count us down. Are we going? Are we going now? Sid loves when I do this. Yeah. We are doing this now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, we are here. It is episode the AC Ocho, I believe. Sid, is that correct? Correct. She's right there. She keeps us on track. So 18, the Ocho. And I think for the 18, we're going to mix it up a little bit today. I am your host, Nathan Wickline. I am joined by no one over here today. Sarah Messer is out and about in foreign countries doing some type of vegan terrorism, saving of animals. I don't even know what she's doing. I know that she's not here. I don't even know if I was allowed to say this on the thing to put it out there.
I think you just got her in trouble.
Yeah.
With that line there.
2 words, North Korea. That's what I'm saying. If she can get in and out, I think she's out. So she's not with us this week, but she's doing good stuff for the world and good stuff for animals and a much better person than any of the 4 of us. So hopefully her karma will kind of flood over to us. But we are from the Star Hill Lounge at the Dairy Market downtown. Once again, thanks to those guys for allowing us to use their facilities and wreck their room for another week. And we are also thankful that Station C is still writing checks. I don't know if Ben must not watch these because he still says, yeah, let's go ahead and pay for another group of those things. So we are here this week with a completely different format. More than just one guest. We have 3 folks. Some of these folks have been here before. As I said before, it was so nice. We're going to do it twice. For 2 of the guys, we're joined for the first time by one of the others. I'm going to turn it over to you, the guy closest to me, and let you introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do, and then we'll kick this thing off.
Joe Miller, Senior Loan Officer with Intercoastal Mortgage. Obviously, I'm in the mortgage industry, but this is my 21st year doing home loans. And Charlottesville, born and raised. Been here 48 of my 49 years. Love what I do. Love where I live. It's a great day.
49 doesn't look a day over 52, does it?
Do not.
No.
Yeah,
Wow.
not a day. It's actually funny.
How you feeling this morning, Joe?
I'm here. Shout out Mike Garza.
We'll ask. Go ahead. Yeah.
I am Josh Tracy. I'm a realtor with Real Estate 3. Been a realtor for about 6 years now and really enjoy it. It's a great fit for me. I'm also born and raised UVA alumni, Charlottesville for life. Love this place. Love introducing people to all the amenities that we have in this town. And we may do a little something today about kind of going through what it's like to enter the buying process of buying a house, the biggest, scariest financial decision of your life, and some of the implications that come through with that.
Make just real fast, make all the judgments about me that you want, but this has to be said. I've never noticed how blue Josh's eyes are until the light catches them right here. Gorgeous. I don't know if the camera's getting this, but I'm mesmerized. Thank you. My day is made. John Smith.
And how do you follow that? I don't know how you follow that. So John Smith, my eyes are not blue. And I am a UVA grad as well. Been in Charlottesville since 96, took a little sabbatical in Northern Virginia. So got about 23, 24 years here. I'm with Bankers Insurance. I am one of their personal insurance advisors. So I help people with their homeowners insurance. And that's how I tie into this whole conversation.
And John Smith, also a saint. Can we call you Saint John Smith?
You can. It's Saint Cuz, and there's a couple backstories that go into that. But I have partaken in the requisite number of beers to be called a saint.
Yeah, it's more than 10.
Well over 10. You couple orders of magnitude.
Is it? It's like what do you have? 1,500 now.
Well over that.
Or what we call a Tuesday night at Joe Miller's house. All right, boys. Well, let's jump into it then. Let's figure out why there's 3 of you here, what we're going to be talking about today, and why we chose you 3 to be here. Everyone wants to know more about, the process, soup to nuts of buying a house and what all is involved in it. So we got 3 of our experts from Station C to join us today, and they're going to start with it. So I am a home buyer in Charlottesville, Virginia, and what is one of the first things I'm going to want to do?
I would say first, you're more than likely going to start with Josh. Going to have a conversation with Josh and then Josh takes it from here.
Yeah. A lot of the times, my very first conversations with home buyers they're just thinking about buying a home. They don't even know for sure that they do want to indeed buy a house. And usually one of the first questions I'll actually ask is, are you going to be in this house for 5 years? And if the answer is no, we might be here for 2 or 3 years, and then we're considering going to another city, I might tell them, I can sell you a house, but you might be better off renting. So just really taking into consideration people's long-term plans and asking some of the important questions that they themselves may not have considered yet. So if the answer is yes, we do want to make Charlottesville home for the foreseeable future, then we kind of figure out what part of town do you want to be in? Do you care what schools, districts you're going to have? How big is the house? How many bedrooms do you need? Do you need an office? Do you need a garage? Answer all of those questions and get the parameters. Then we have to talk about the budget. And the budget is usually where I will refer them out to a experienced local lender, such as Joe, and he'll kind of run them through the process, and I'll let you take over for that.
Yeah. So when we first getting started, similar conversation. I want to know how long you're going to be there, because that's going to determine which product we pick. I want to go over income. I'm going to gather some income documents. Typically 30 days of pay stubs, typically 60 days of bank statements. And that's sort of changed it's stayed the same, but there's different parameters that we use based on the guidelines that we have to go by. But then that's going to determine what our budget is. There's a lot of different programs out there. There's programs where you can get credit towards closing costs. There's programs where you can put as little as 1% down, 0% down in some instances. Actually, Josh and I are doing one of those right now. 100% financing through USDA. So
yeah, that's actually one of the big myths that we would like to bust. If you are in the market and think that you have to have 20% down, you don't. In the last 3 years alone, I've probably had about 5 or 6 buyers that showed up at the closing table with less than $2,000 and were able to get into a new house. So
Yeah.
It really does happen, and it's life-changing for some of them. One guy in particular, I'm thinking of, the pandemic and lockdown happened during his loan being processed, and he was kind of like, I guess I'm going to keep my job, and took the plunge. And in the meantime, he's sitting pretty after the appreciation that happened.
Yeah.
And he'd been a long-term renter, so it's a complete life changer.
Worked out well.
Yeah.
And so you do a lot of land. So I guess you do a lot of new construction. One thing I've always been curious about, and this is for John, what's my responsibility as someone that's getting ready to build a new house, new construction? Is there certain types of insurance I get? Is that on the builder? How does that work?
It depends on the situation. A lot of times, it used to be that the builder would always carry the coverage for the home while it was under construction. So we didn't get pulled into that process, but we're finding that more and more builders are pushing that to the client. And so we're starting to get those phone calls and having folks ask us those questions. And we have the ability to do that for folks and get them situated with their insurance so they're covered during the time frame. It's definitely something that once you are into that planning phase, you're going to want to get your insurance broker or agent in the conversation as early as possible. Because generally speaking, a lot of times when you're building, you're more of in a rural area than you are in a suburb. And there's some considerations there as far as fire department availability and water availability for fighting fires. That plays into that situation. I would love it if all builders, drew a 5-mile wide circle around the fire departments in the area and only built in those circles, because it would make my life so much easier. But generally, that's not what happens. And so getting us involved early helps us out a ton.
Is that the main driver at premium?
Oh, that's one of them. Absolutely.
Distance to fire department.
Distance to fire department, huge driver. So you kind of fall into three categories. You're within the 5 miles and have fire hydrant. So your standard neighborhood.
I've actually got a fire hydrant in my front yard.
There you go. You're in great shape.
You should be free.
Yeah, we're going to be able to put the fire out when they show up. That second category, and you're usually 30 to 50% more expensive when you don't have the fire hydrant, but you're within that 5 mile range. And then once you get past that 5 mile range, it could be 2 to 3 times what a similar size house would be premium wise.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway here is you really should be supporting your local fire department.
Absolutely.
So if you get those letters in the mail.
Yes, send money.
That's actually saving you money.
Absolutely.
By donating and keeping all those guys running.
100%.
Never
Very
thought of
much
that.
so.
So yesterday at one of the meetings, you were talking about kids throwing football in a neighbor's yard. Yeah, right. Joe loved this.
I've told the story like 5 times in the last 24 hours.
Already?
One kid throws a football, hits another kid in the eye. Because it happened in their yard, they were they had the liability for that. So if I own 5 acres of land somewhere, and I've had it for a couple of years, and I hire Ben and the guys from Bill and Birch to come build a house, that's my land. Am I liable for what's going on there? Let's say that they bring somebody in and they step on a rake and it smacks them in the head and they have some type of brain injury. Are you liable for that? What's the deal
So
there?
you're only liable for things that you are contributing to. So if you have gopher holes and you know about this and there's someone walking through the property, step in there, they break their ankle, you're going to get a phone call about that. During the building process, I definitely suggest that folks have liability extended to that location. In some instances, your homeowner's insurance will extend for you. In other cases, you have to buy a separate policy to cover that. But in today's environment, I always say having protection is better than not having protection. You don't want to mess around and find out scenario. But as far as your builder goes, if you're working with a reputable builder, they're going to have all the right coverages in place for their people, for the subs, for their folks. So you're covered from that standpoint. But, people wandering onto the property, I've seen weird things. I've seen pallets of shingles go missing. We've seen air conditioning units go missing. And some of those things are not the builder's responsibility once they've been delivered to the location. And so if your 2 AC units go missing and it was on you to cover them at that point, you want to make sure you have the right things in place so you don't have to come out of pocket a second time. That's never fun.
This is for Josh. Josh, what's the number one request you get from someone that's looking for land? What's everyone's top 10 list and number one?
If somebody is looking for a piece of vacant land, raw land, in other words, where it's maybe not even in a neighborhood necessarily, like a building lot in a neighborhood, but it's out a little bit more, it's probably going to be a little more rural. I'd say probably privacy is the number one reason that people want to have a little bit of space around them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's they want to build a forever house on that piece of land and not be able to see the neighbors. And I kind of joke around with people sometimes after I get to know them for a little while and I might talk and be like, you really just want to go outside and be able to pee off the front porch? Yes, exactly.
Everyone's dream. That's everyone's dream.
Yeah. Or you have the hot tub in the backyard and no clothes in the hot tub. So, it's sort of like you can't necessarily do that on a quarter-acre lot in the city.
You can,
but it's not for everybody.
You check it off the box. Naked peeing off the front porch.
Yeah. So having a little bit of land, sometimes we want it as a recreational parcel. Like they might have a townhouse in town, but they want someplace that they can go out and eventually they're going to build. But in the meantime, it's a really nice place to go hiking, spend some time, camp, things like that. So I run into those people as well. But a lot of the time when I'm looking at land, it's under the lens of eventually a house is going to get built here. And what is the setting going to be like? And I'll go up into the woods if it's wooded and armed with a topo map, a machete, snake boots, bug
love that
repellent.
stuff. Loves that
If I
stuff.
need to do that stuff. I have
That sounds super dangerous.
I have an extensive.
So many dangerous things.
I have an
actually.
extensive
Liability insurance?
outdoor background, so I love using the topo map
Yeah.
in the course of work. And it's for a residential realtor, which is probably 75% of my business. Even the 25% of working with raw land is kind of a lot for a residential realtor. But theoretically, also, if real estate slows down in the winter, a lot of times people don't buy as many houses in between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve. The last few pandemic years, however, that was not the case. If I have extra time in the winter, I would actually spend that going out to look at the vacant land parcels around Albemarle County, anything within the 30 to 45 minute range. And that, coupled with my background from growing up here, from doing a lot of road biking and actively, going by very slowly on some of these country roads, I just have a real deep, intimate knowledge of the entire area. If a piece of land is on the market, sometimes it sits for a year or two before it sells. And
Is there a
some
reason
of that
for that?
is, it's usually a couple of things. People do put land on the market and they want to get their number, even if it's unrealistic,
Okay.
and they don't care if it sells or not. So that's the case. The other case that sometimes happens with land is somebody's clearing out an estate, or they've had some type of, I need liquidity quickly, so they price it a little more attractively, and then it could go under contract in a week.
You just had something like that, didn't you?
I just had a land listing up in Greene County that was 10 acres, and the same as staging a house, you can also stage the land. But staging the land is a completely different thing. You have to bring in a 100,000. If it's thick woods and brambles underneath, there's not as many people like me who are willing to go on the bushwhack tour into a raw piece of land and say, I think I could build a house here.
Right.
So what we actually did with that last piece of land is we brought in a forestry mulcher, which is a rotating oil drum size barrel with 200 teeth on it that spins. And if this was a tree, you could just chop it right down just by laying that rolling barrel on top of it. And it's attached to the front of a skid steer. So we went in and had a guy go out there for 8 hours, and he cleared out a whole lot of the understory and the small trees. So this piece of land was actually staged so that there was, a 40-foot wide entrance at the road. There was already a culvert there. We went in, and all of the understory for about an acre and a half was cleared out, and it was the prettiest section of the land from looking at the 10-acre topo map. Immediately I was like, I think I would build a house here. I went bushwhacking first, but then I met the forestry mulcher out there, and I said, clear out this area because I think this is going to be the best home site. Once it was done, and you had the sight lines of hundreds of yards instead of 2 yards,
Right.
it made a huge difference, and immediately it made that piece of land a lot more attractive. So, it's
safe to say
when I was representing the seller, that works really well. It went under contract in less than a week.
Wow.
And at a pretty fair price
Is
also.
that something you rent or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a $100,000 machine.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, you
around.
can rent these. You can rent these machines as well, but it's kind of like, it's fun to use an excavator.
Sure. Sure. I've done that
Yeah.
once.
But the people that do it full time, day in, day out, are just so much more efficient at it.
Right.
Safe to say, though, that
and they're going to
99
do a better job. It's going to be a
Sure.
little cleaner looking after it's all said and done as well.
It's safe to say that like 99.99% of listing agents out there are not doing that. I mean,
Yeah. Some are after they, why hasn't this sold for the last year? Well, maybe you should try this. It's the same thing as staging a house. Painted in neutral colors. Don't have too much clutter. You're kind of doing the same thing for the land as you're doing for the house. I mean, with houses, just the paint color is ridiculous. I've had plenty of buyers go into a house and say, I don't want to buy this house. I don't like the wall colors.
Right.
I'm like, you do realize this is the easiest fix, and you don't even have to hire somebody. Like
Right.
you can, like, there's a $20 paint kit at Costco.
Done.
You know, go get a can of paint, and like this
Right.
entire room will be different. But some people just don't have as much imagination. And the same thing as decluttering your house. People want room to imagine their own stuff in the house. That's the biggest part of staging a house for sale. But when it comes to land, it's really nice to be able to stage it and give people those really long sight lines.
Right.
Yeah.
If there are, and the other thing, the reason I like looking at land in the winter is all the leaves are down. So if there's a piece of land and it does have mountain views, you'll see them in the winter, but you won't see them in the summer. And you know, the classic example, the house that Pillar and Purchase building up on the top of Whitehall, Pigeon Top Trail is, we went out there in the winter and we're like, oh, there's going to be some views. But even then it was kind of hard to see with all the trunks. And they did some clearing. You need to do clearing anyway for the home site, and you need to do some clearing for the septic field. So even if it's like super dense woods, sometimes clearing that much acreage alone, just the home and the septic field, can get you a little window of a mountain view or pastoral view or something besides woods, something of interest to look at. And, you know, that's kind of like I think the original question was like, what's a raw land buyer looking for? Some of it is also just the scenery.
Yeah.
We are super lucky to live in the Piedmont area.
Beautiful
Shenandoah
area.
National Park's only 30 minutes away. I've actually been describing recently to people that have no idea like where Charlottesville or even Virginia is. If I'm traveling or they're from elsewhere, I'm kind of like, it's wine country. We live in wine country. And grapes don't grow in ugly places. So, people are going out to find
great
land, and they can find something that's beautiful to look at while they're in the house. That's the best houses once they're built also have a really great view. Some from every single room. It definitely commands a price premium down the road. So if, every house in Whittington was the same, but this, 3 houses here had a really big mountain view, but you can see the ridge from every room in the house. That house is A, going to be worth more, B, going to sell quicker, infinitely into the future, unless something gets built up,
Or the big tower lines
view.
right there on the side.
Yeah. You got to be careful with some of the downtown Charlottesville buildings, because we're starting to get 8- and 9-story buildings. So just because you have a view now does not mean you're going to have
will
one
not be
like
there for forever.
the townhouse. I feel really bad for the townhouses over by Stonefield. There's some like big buildings going up over there, but used to have like
building going
big
up
views.
right in
So,
front of there.
anyway, that's kind of like my 2 cents on
New construction,
what
too.
people are looking for.
I get a lot of new construction calls, and typically what I tell people is first you call Josh, because Josh knows all the land. And I don't really need to get involved with new construction other than what your budget is, and so I can help you plan for that. But then, there's so much more that goes into it. You still have to find your builder. You got to find a schedule. Once you agree with who your builder is going to be, then you got to like get on his calendar. Then Josh comes back to me and we get going. But typically, like I always tell people, like, have you talked to your realtor or a builder yet? No. Okay. Well, then let's.
Yeah.
Here's some names.
Because in order to originate a permanent construction loan, you need to have the architectural plans already done up. And a lot of people haven't, even gone that route. It's still a dream in their head at this point. The good news is, depending on how liquid you are, there are land loans. So you can just lock a piece of land down and then take your time, purchase it. It'll be in your name and the bank's name for a little while. That gives you time to shop around, find a contractor, get on their schedule. Some of the best contractors around town have like a 1-2 year wait list. I think it's starting to get a little bit better, but I remember a neighbor of mine who has a architect and contracting firm was like, hey, by the way, are you looking for any more work? He's like, I'm 2 years out. So I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That was going to be one of my other questions. You said 75% is, just residential and 25% is land. What's the difference in timelines? I mean, I guess the process now with residential is pretty quick because you have to just jump on things.
Yeah.
So how does that change? What's the average? Is there an average?
Kind of stepping back to the buying process. You have sort of identified your parameters. You've gotten pre-qualified with Joe, and maybe we'll come back and kind of touch on the difference between a pre-qualification, a pre-approval, and all the way through underwriting as well. But now you're shopping around for a house. You find the right house. You make an offer. It gets accepted. It's probably an average of 45 days, but it could be as few as 30 days. And Joe, can you do a 21-day loan? I've heard of some ridiculously short timelines. I think a few years ago, 30 days was the shortest time. And then some lenders are coming back and be like, we can do it really quick. But
we could do it in 14. It's
14 days to originate a loan and close on a house.
But some of that stuff has to line up perfectly. But we can pretty easily do it.
These are averages, and this is why I really love doing real estate. It's never boring. It's different every time, and depending on what the seller's position is, a lot of times we're also saying, well, we're going to sell the house, but that's going to make us homeless. We don't have a place to live yet. So can we lease back the house from you, the new purchaser, for 1 to 2 months while we go house shopping, sometimes in a different state?
And just to jump in on that thought for a second, definitely if you're doing those leaseback situations, you're going to want to talk to your insurance person. There are carriers out there that are not a big fan of that situation, having the old owner still in the home. So that's another spot where getting with your insurance provider, another step in the process, making sure you have those ducks in a row.
Never thought about that.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought about that either.
Yeah,
it's happening a lot more now.
Yeah.
And it is just because the inventory is so low, people are kind of doing whatever they have to do. But for a lot of people, if it's a competitive offer situation, which is, in Charlottesville especially, if a house is turnkey and doesn't need anything and you can move in right away and the kitchen's already great and upgraded, those houses are seeing the most competition and getting bid up above asking price.
Sure.
Sometimes there are cash offers in the mix, and people are also waiving inspections sometimes, but there's some workarounds there as well, because we were maybe going to have a home inspector come and join us today as well to talk about that, but we'll have to save that for another podcast. He's actually on an inspection right now as we speak, so staying busy. But you can also do a pre-offer inspection. So you set appointments, and you can actually have a home inspector attend. This is typically best done on a second visit if there's time. So you and the inspector have the house to yourselves for an hour, and they'll just do a verbal consultation, aka the walk and talk. And for some people, that is enough. But again, you're purchasing this house, you're going to have it for 5+ years. Anything that goes wrong with it down the road, you're on the hook for. So it's best to proceed with caution and get these done if possible. So the pre-offer home inspection, you have all the expertise and all of the tools of a home inspector at your disposal. So if you go up in the roof and you see a little discoloration on the sheathing on the underside, he can actually get out his infrared thermal camera and take a look at it and tell, oh yeah, there's a cold spot there, which means that water has actually been going into the boards. And then you have a closer look. And then he also has I'm thinking of one inspector in particular, but they'll have cameras, but they can send down a sewer line or a sink line and check all that stuff out in the space of an hour. And then when it's time for you to put your offer in, you can actually put an offer in waiving the home inspection on the contract, even though you've already done it and you have identified any red flags, yellow flags, and feel really good about proceeding. So that's actually been a strategy that's worked really well for me for getting some clients. I've probably done it about a dozen times now at this point in the last 2 years.
Awesome. Well, Sydney's given us the high sign. So I have one big question that's just killing me here. And we've heard about the vultures in insurance. But for Josh Tracy, what is the biggest, scariest poisonous snake you ever ran across while you're doing one of these things?
That's a great question.
Poisonous.
Aren't they all poisonous and scary?
I mean,
In my world, they are, right?
I have 3 kids, and every year the cycle of nature has like one pest that is very prolific. Some years it's stink bugs, some years it's the ladybugs, some years it's the mosquitoes. Well, one year, and this was before 2008, we were actually living out in Stony Point, which is a rural area, but within 3 miles of the Stony Point Fire Department. So we were covered there.
Exactly where that is.
And probably like 5 copperheads, like over the course of one summer. So
Nothing while you're out there walking.
most of the time they're scared of you also, but I do have like a pair of Red Wings with the highest possible ankle protection just in case. Yeah, and car hats can, a lot of times you have to, if you're on the actual bushwhack tour, you're like, wading through brambles at some point as well. So it's nice to have a thicker pair of pants on, even if it's the summertime. I'm honestly more worried about ticks. And in late summer, chiggers. It's like if it's August, I'm going to be like, you know what? I'm not walking any raw land this month. That's the most suspect. But
what's the goofiest thing borrower has done, like last second, just before, like
buy a car?
Don't do that.
And I can't tell you the number of times. That's one of the things we say at the very, very beginning, especially if ratios are very tight and you're kind of trying to really kind of squeezing them into an approval situation. It's just do not go out and finance anything. And you're like, well, I just bought a car. Is that okay? Like, no, that is not okay. Not okay at all. So return that sucker. Go talk to Sam Clark afterwards.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sam Clark, Jim Price Chevrolet.
Yep.
Right. That is episode 18 in the books. Hopefully next week for 19, Sarah has made it out of whatever communist block country she was in, rescuing corgis and Shih Tzus.
What animal do you think she's going to come back with?
I saw a picture of the Queen's corgi, so I don't know what's going on.
Really?
She was like a little corgi.
Corgi rescue.
Yeah, there was writing that I wasn't familiar with. So I don't know where she is. There was odd wallpaper on the walls. It was a strange looking place. Like, some Eastern Bloc or maybe in North Korea. I don't know.
Another
she is.
place John Smith is not going.
That's right. Yeah. No, she'll be there. But she's there. And she's liberating animals. So good for her. She'll be back next week. I don't know who our guest is next week. Do we know? Maybe it's just me. Let's see. If not, maybe we'll bring you guys back. We'll talk some more about snakes. And
Sounds good.
people not buying cars. Or maybe we'll just bring Sydney out and talk to her. That's it. We will be back Star Hill next week. I think that is correct. For episode 19. Thanks. And all right. I'm off.
Thanks.